Welcome to our second webinar on the Echo platform. Echo shares key trends and innovations in personal protection systems through live events, webinars, and content articles. In Echo, you will meet professional end users from around the world, as well as leaders and experts from the industry. Today's webinar is focusing on the evaluation of the Modular Combat Vest System, called MCVS, and shortly you will be introduced to two experts in this field. One is a commander in the Norwegian military and the other a system manager responsible for NFM's Thor MCVS line. A former Norwegian Special Forces operator will also join the panel, and together they will discuss the evolution of the Modular Combat Vest System and NFM's Thor products. The host of the MCVS webinar is Adam Reed, a former Australian covert police operator with experience in combat photography in Iraq.
Welcome to Echo, brought to you by NFM. Here we are at the NFM headquarters in Ski, outside of Oslo, and we're bringing to you today our second webinar in the Echo series. Echo being our platform, we deliver digital content to you, our audience, including webinars, interviews, and podcasts. We've received a lot of good feedback from our first webinar on Yelm, so we've decided to dedicate this second webinar to MCVS, our Modular Combat Vest System. We have three experts in this field here with us today in the panel. Our first is Jan. He's joining us from the lovely laptop over here in Sweden. Jan is our system manager for R&D in charge of the vest system with 10 years experience in the French Foreign Legion. We have Tor, who's a commander in the Norwegian military with over 25 years experience. And we have Sergey, who's our user interface manager with 28 years experience in the Naval Special Warfare Command. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a range of different topics with the system. We're going to be talking about the history, its materials used, what type of forces are using what. And just to let you know, as the audience, you can send in questions immediately when you want to. They will be answered straight away via the chat system, the registered chat system. And you're going to have about a 20-minute window after we're finished in case you think of any last-minute questions. There will be people there to answer those for you. But what we'll do is I'll get the guys to introduce themselves to you. So we'll start with you, Jan, if you could give us a couple of minutes, quick intro and why you're here.
Sure. So who am I? I worked at NFM for the last 15 years. I have 20 years of experience from the defense industry, specifically related to personal equipment. During the last 15 years at NFM, I have mainly worked with acquisition programs for military and law enforcement. If I could just name a few, I'd like to name the program towards the Singapore Armed Forces for the load-bearing protection system, which they are now using. Several iterations of the French load-bearing protection system SNB, starting from the soldier modernization program. The new Lithuanian load-bearing protection system, and obviously my last role as system design authority for the Norwegian load-bearing and protection system, which we will talk more about today. I started off my career within the military at the Swedish Northland Ranger Regiment K4, and then I switched to the French Foreign Legion. I spent 9 years at the Airborne Regiment based in Calvi, Corsica, as a reconnaissance patrol commander.
Great, thanks. Tor?
Yeah, my name is Toring Thun, and I'm a commander in the Norwegian Defence Material Agency. And as you can see, I'm wearing a Navy uniform, so I'm a Navy commander. And I worked with the Norwegian Defence Material Agency now for some 6 years. And prior to that, starting my military career, I started as a conscript in the army, and then went to the course, and from then I spent 3 years in the army before converting into to the Navy, and then did the Naval Academy. And after that, I spent quite some years in the Coastal Ranger Command in Harstad, northern Norway, before returning to Bergen and worked together with Sergei as well in the Navy Specialized Warfare Group or Command prior to then starting work in NDMA, which is a short abbreviation for it.
Hey, can you tell me why you're here?
Well, I'm here mainly representing the Norwegian Defense Department and our project in NDMA, P4038, which is a acquisition of a combat vest system, which says that acquisition has led us into a contract with NFM and Equinor in buying the MCVS. So yeah.
Yep. It's okay.
Yeah, my name is Sergei Moore. I'm end user manager at NFM. Started up about 1 year ago. I started my military career as a conscript Navy diver, then went to the Army, spent some years in the Army, went back to the Navy. So I spent totally 36 years in the Armed Forces, the 28th of the last in the NAVSOF community. So I went to NAVSOF selection in 1992. So my job in NFM is actually to be the link between the end user and the R&D department to get the feedback, because we are a user-oriented firm. Because if you want to make a good product, me and Tor Inge worked together earlier, it's the same. We have the focus on the end user because it's the end user who's actually using the equipment. So I'm glad to be here.
Great. And how many years total have you actually been?
36.
How old are you?
I'm
You don't have to answer.
59.
Sorry, mate.
Yeah, it's okay.
Nothing like a bit of humour.
Yeah.
So I thought what we could do is kick it off today by talking about the history of MCVS, Modular Combat Vest System. And I'll go over to you, Jan, because you're a bit of a history teller. Could be a good start.
Well, sure. We need to start somewhere. So I guess we can start at what it looked like in the end of the 80s. Well, you still had the Cold War. So most nations, they had conscript armies. And the idea was to perform a mass mobilization of the population. There was not that much focus on personal protection, except eventually for protection against fragments. Anyway, when the Cold War finished, beginning of the 90s, of course, there was the Gulf War, where basically it was still conventional warfare with tanks, mechanized infantry, etc. So there you also had protection in the sense of basically just fragmentation vests, and then on top of that, some sort of load-bearing harness. But I would say that the change really came with the United Nations operation in ex-Yugoslavia, because that was the first time really that soldiers were equipped with full body armor, and including hard ballistic plates against rifles. Unfortunately, it was not really a system that was well thought out. It was a system that the intention was just to protect soldiers who were very, very static. And so in that sense, you were not really capable of using your weapons. So that changed during the years, specifically during the conflict in Afghanistan, where nations noted that they required more mobility for the soldiers. And what happened then was that you just added a pouch attachment interface on the external face of the cover. So you ended up with what you have in Norway, for instance, as the M07 vest, which is a vest which covers the entire torso and a bit of the abdomen. And then on the external face, you have a MOLLE pouch attachment interface. And that's what we call an integrated carrier. So after that, during the years, obviously, soldiers noted that they were not as mobile as they would prefer to be. So they also noted that putting too much weight on the vest had issues in terms of, simple, not just being able not to move properly in and out of vehicles, but also provided impingement problems for the shoulders, lower back problems, etc. So what they did was that they just they took many of them took the belt from the old harness and just added the belt in order to distribute the weight a little bit better. And then obviously the step wasn't that far to go from a shorter ballistic vest and then just adding a ballistic belt and in that sense actually increase the protected area, but also increase the mobility. So that's where we were pretty much before we started the development of the P4038 program.
Great talk. Could you elaborate perhaps on the different levels of protection needed or required?
Yeah, it's quite interesting to have the background and history that Jan presented, because it kind of transfers into what we've experienced in the armed forces in Norway. As Jan was touching upon, we started out with ballistic protection mainly for fragments. But as Norwegian forces then started to deploy more, the need for a higher level of protection also rised. So we had the introduction of the M07, which was a fully protected vest system, and with that we've also seen that the demand for protection has been more and more vital and more in focus also back home. So with the experience that we have throughout the deployments that we've participated in, the return experience has been that we need this kind of protection also in other types of operations. And with that, we've also seen that the more specialized your unit is, you also then define your needs and your requirements. And we've, throughout the years, introduced different variants of the vest. We also introduced new systems with a bit more different configuration for the ones who has very special needs. So throughout the period of from say early 2000 and up until today, we've seen that the number of system has kind of grown in our system, or in the armed forces and in our logistics system. So that's kind of been the focus now in this acquisition, to kind of take a step back and reevaluate what is the need, what kind of system is required to kind of fill that a broader range of soldier tasks.
I guess, Svika, that leads into the toolbox.
Because actually the system that is constructed is actually a bag which contains tool. We'll tell a little bit more about it later on, but just look upon it as a toolbox, because what a soldier and operator needs is actually a toolbox with the right tools to solve the right problems or tasks. So in that toolbox, he actually has a system that he could, let's say, put together. He would do an analysis of the mission. And due to the inputs he have on analyzing the mission, he will see what he needs to solve that mission. So he had the right toolbox to go into the toolbox and build the system and configure it the way he needed. So because the point is that Jan also told us that carry as less as you need, but carry what you need.
Did you find yourself as an operator changing the system quite often based on the operation?
Actually, we didn't because in, let's say, my former unit was actually involved in Afghanistan, which were a kind of a scenario. We did the same thing with direct action, and that's then your system is set up in one way. But now we are turning back, as Jan was talking about the Cold War, we're actually going back to the great power competition. That means that soft operators and soldiers will have different tasks to solve. Let's say for soft, for instance, they will probably have to have long missions going behind enemy lines, long transition, long infill, and that kind of mission. They will not build a rig in the same way they would do to just go down and kick in doors and do a direct action mission.
Yeah. I guess, Tor, for you, that provides an interesting scenario where you're going to have different configurations for different units and different areas. So could you maybe talk a little bit about that and perhaps after show us the modularity on the mannequin?
Yeah, and I think also it's important to remember that with the increased need and requirements for better protection, we have also added weight onto the soldier. And now we see that the technology on the ballistic protection, both on materials but also the construction of both soft panels and plates, and the Vest system as a whole has grown technically and become more adaptable, so to speak. So, and modularity is the key if you want to have a system that can solve or be the toolbox. So not only modularity in the level of protection, but also modularity in terms of what kind of tasks you're set to perform. And a special operations soldier is like a potato, and he has to solve a range of tasks, whereas the more conventional soldier may have fewer tasks. But that still requires a system that works well for the soldier, giving the soldier the ability to solve the task he's set to do, or her. So, and with this system, I think that we've achieved a very unique modularity that gives us the ability to solve a very broad range of soldier tasks. And I think the easiest way to actually demonstrate that is to kind of dismantle the system and show how it works, or how the thought behind the system is.
Yep, great.
So this is a mannequin that's wearing the system that we're acquiring through our contract with NFM. And we have several aspects of requirements or sets of requirements. Weight being, of course, what we chase all the time, but we also chase comfort. We chase good ergonometry. The system has to work together with a broad range of other soldier equipment as well. And of course, you have to be able to handle your weapons, being maybe the key. And also taking the system on and off quickly is very important. I think we all who's been wearing a combat vest in one way or another knows about Velcro and how that can be quite a challenge to get on and off quickly. But this system utilizes the tubes, and you can easily take it off and on just by 2 quick moves.
Which is obviously very important in a stressful situation.
Absolutely, and it can be life-saving, say for a Navy guy who falls into the water and has to get rid of all the weight. So it's easy and quick to just get it off your body and then focus on survival. Also medically, if you're injured or you have to have a check, or you have to check your mate if he's injured, it's easy to open the system, do a full check, and then actually take the system back on and keep his protection on. So taking it off is 2 easy, quick moves, and then you can just slide the system off. And I'll get back to the belt and yoke. And it's interesting then to see that even me started out my military career with a belt and a yoke. So
can you elaborate on yoke, because perhaps there's somebody who doesn't quite understand the terminology.
Well, the belt is a load-bearing system which we had in the post-Cold War or in the Cold War area, and at that time we had the belt
with 4 magazines.
4 magazines.
Only 4.
Only 4.
A water pouch and ABC, CBRN mask. And that was kind of it.
That was it.
Yeah. So we've kind of returned to that configuration because we see that it's again back to the weight. You carry a lot of weight on your shoulders and your neck. You have your helmet, you have your load-bearing rig, you have your rucksack, and so on. So everything is placed on the shoulder, and that becomes quite the stress. So having the ability to distribute, magazine pouches, pistol, medic pouches, and back down onto the hip, and have that work together with the vest is what we see as a key requirement.
Also, I guess, additional protection.
Yeah, and we also see that the belt offers a possibility to add on protection. So you actually increase the total area of protective ballistic protection on the soldier by introducing soft ballistics into the belt. So instead of having the normal foam padding in the belt, you can actually then have soft ballistics. And again, the technology today, the soft ballistic is so flexible, and the soldier doesn't notice much difference. So that is also, the belt is then an integrated part of the system as a total.
And in the system itself, you can also have soft armor.
Yeah, and the system consists that the protective part of the system consists of 2 parts. It's the soft panel, as you have there. They're integrated in the panel pouches, and then you have the ballistical plates, and they work together. But you can also use as I mentioned before, the soft panel is also kind of a step up in protection, so you can go from one protection to add a basic layer of protection with the soft armor, and then you have the add-on with the ballistical plate.
Yeah.
And that's all integrated into the vest, but you can then, as we've discussed, reduce or increase or adapt according to your need, according to the threat, according to the task you're set to perform. So it's quite easy and quite fast with this system to actually remove the pouches and then both take off the panel or the plate. So if you're in a meeting scenario, for instance, where you're in or in a forward operating base, and you need to have, there's some kind of threat, you need to have some basic protection. You can actually have that on your body as you move around in the base. And then if you need to, then you can just throw your vest back on and you're fully protected
because this brings us back to what we were talking about, the toolbox. Because in some kind of scenario, the best protection you have is that the thing you're wearing are concealed. So this is actually a vest that you could have concealed under your shirt, because especially the soft part of the armed forces also do missions in concealed environment. And then as concealed the vest is, that's the best protection you can get. So you have everything in the same toolbox. That's the good thing.
It's certainly changed since I was a policeman, because the concealed vests that I used were probably this thick. So they weren't very concealed, so this is awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jan, you were going to say something?
Yes, so it's very important to understand what Sergey is talking about. He's talking about a toolbox. Now, there's a huge difference between a toolbox and a multi-tool.
Yeah, significant difference.
Because a multi-tool does everything but nothing. But a toolbox is exactly what you need, because you will take out the specific tool that you need and you will just use that. So it's very, very difficult to make a load-bearing and protection system that does not become a multi-tool. So what is unique with this system, from my point of view, really is that, going back to what Sergey said about wearing only what you need, is that the system is built up in such a sense that you only add the functionality which you require. So it means that you never carry additional load due to, or you never have a functionality that you do not need. So that's the difference from if you go back a few years and you look at the systems where you put everything into the vest. You had the pouch attachment system, you had the hard ballistic plates, the soft ballistic panels, everything was in one system. It meant that you always carried everything. Well, additional mass, of course, but also additional bulk, which obviously brings a lot of issues. So what is unique with this system really is that you only wear what you need. That's it.
And so what about, in your role, sustainability is a big thing.
Absolutely.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, sustainability is a key factor. As I mentioned before, we have today several systems in service. And having a system like this gives us the ability to introduce one system that fits a larger portion of tasks in the armed forces. And with that, we also have a heritage with the vest systems that we have. So logistical-wise, introducing one system to kind of replace several systems is always a good thing. But then again, we also have, as we all know, the most expensive part of any vest is the plate. And that's a heritage that we've required to use also with this system. So we actually take what we have and use it in a more modern, better system. And with that, that's of course a good cost saving, but it's also taking care of the investments that we've already done.
Yeah. And so, Jan, the materials, I guess that's a big part of sustainability. Can you talk a little bit about the materials used now?
Yes, of course. So the reason to why nations started to use integrated carriers from the beginning was actually to reduce weight, because obviously if you have several vests, if you're wearing two vests at the same time, you will have more weight than if you are wearing just one vest. So the idea was to integrate the load-bearing harness into the ballistic vest. And that was the right idea at the time, because technology, you did not have the type of fabrics that we have available since the last 5 years. And I would say that the main difference is really the development in terms of laminates, because these laminates, they enable us to do so much more than we could with classical fabrics. We can reduce the weight, so reduce the mass by cutting out all the extraneous materials. these cutouts can also be used as a pouch attachment interface or any type of attachment interface which you require. And in addition, specifically when it comes to the load-bearing configuration of the P4038 system, you can see that it also then increases the capacity for the body to thermoregulate due to the fact that you have so much more ventilation in the system now. So these new fabrics specifically then laminates, and we use mainly practically only laminates in this new system. Obviously, laminates, they have their pros and cons as well. So when you look at the system, you will see that we are also using other more classical fabrics, such as regular webbings, regular cordura. And this is basically due to the fact that we use the best fabric for that particular location and use and functionality. But yes, when laminates first arrived, it gave us, it opened up the possibility of development from before. And a system as the P4038 constructed from fabrics that were available 20 years ago would have, it would have weighed much more than an integrated carrier.
Mm-hmm. And I guess that leads into, just for the audience, there's a little bit of delay when you talk, Jan, to what we hear, just so the audience knows that's what happens when you use the internet. But laser cutting technology, I guess, is what we're leading to.
It is, and that was introduced around 2010, 2028. That's when we first saw that technology in the market, and that's led to a very interesting development, and the laminates being kind of the latest development in that. And it gives us a kind of an added bonus in the system, because a little bit back to sustainability and maintenance. The longevity of the lifespan of the system actually increases, because you don't have to replace a full cover or a full ballistic panel. You can replace the component. So in this system, for instance, if the front panel is broken, then you can easily just replace the front panel or the shoulder strap or the torso belt. So that gives us back again to a cost saving factor, but it also makes it easier to extend the lifespan of the system. Also, what it gives us, we all know Molly, and Molly is a pain in the ass. Sorry, my language, to put the pockets on. And with this, it's actually I think the easiest way to molly it up, to molly the pockets back on, or to change them. You can actually have several panels in several configurations, and back to the toolbox thinking. So you can have one setup for a boarding operation. You can have one setup for long range operations, and so on. So there's some added bonuses in the way the system is constructed.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's seen the news. What's happening in Kabul and what the Taliban have done. They've got themselves a lot of kit. So before we were seeing them wearing, obviously you saw what they were wearing before and what they're wearing now.
They started up with let's say chest rigs with no ballistic protection, because they were, let's say, moving around, kind of light and fast, because it's actually the immobility that kills. But now the tables is turned around. Now the actually Taliban soldiers are actually static targets, and ESK are the one moving around. So you see now they're kitting up. They're having, it's of course something was left behind, but they have ballistic protection. So they are actually kitting up. So that's but there is also another thing with the new threat levels with the great power competition, is that the enemy we have could be fighting tomorrow actually having kind of other marksmanship than Taliban. They have a totally other sights on their weapons. They have thermal capacity on their weapons. that means that ballistic protection is needed in a whole other way than it actually when it comes to critical parts, because they will hit you where they aim.
Yeah.
So that's something new.
And Jan, you've got some interesting statistics on that, where actually the injuries do occur and why the vest system is designed the way it is.
Well, if we look at the operations during the last 20 years or something like that, it's clear that the major reason for hits is still IEDs, right? But gunshot wounds are still the major reason for the KIAs, so to speak. If you look at where the hits are on the body, it's not that much on the torso, but the majority of the KIAs are still on the torso. So that's basically the reason to why you still need to have plates, because plates will protect your life for sure. It's not the soft ballistic armor that will protect and that will save your life. It is actually the plates that will save your life.
Yeah. And now I guess it's an interesting conversation to have politically. If you talked about, Sergei, if there is going to be a major war against another superpower. I mean, not everyone's going to have a modular combat vest system ready. So from a military standpoint, I mean, that's quite a difficult thing to address, I guess.
Absolutely, but then also a key factor here is to actually look into what are the needs in the military, because we've with the development that we've been through, everyone has the same vest system, same protection level, and we have to, I think, be more aware of what are the main tasks the different units are set to perform. And some units may not need that high level of protection. And in fact, the most exposed units are the ones being static. And the units that has the most mobility, that has the need for speed, the need for endurance, they often travel in a protective vehicle of sorts, and then they are out doing their task, fighting, and then returns. And protection is a fact or a result of many factors. It's a result of your ability to move, your speed, your unit's ability to cooperate and fight. It's your ability to actually find cover, good shooting positions, your combat endurance and combat skills. So it's distinguishing between units and looking into what are their actual needs is also something that gives us the ability to fit the soldiers accordingly. And with the panels that Sergei showed, you have a lot broader flexibility, so you can fit soldiers with soft ballistics where there's a low threat. And the soldiers fighting for instance, Telemark Battalion, who's traveling with CV90s, and then they're out of the wagon and fighting, and then returning into the combat vehicle. Then they need to have something that is, gives them the physical mobility and doesn't hinder their movements and operating their systems and weapons.
Yeah,
I think it's because I think it's really important to be aware of that the universal infantryman, he is not there anymore. There's difference. Even in an ordinary infantry battalion, the infantryman has a lot of different, let's say, sets he has to do. He could be on a six-wheel drive. It could be walking, So it's also the same for him. It's not only soft that need flexibility. Every fighting soldier needs flexibility. Also ordinary infantryman.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing like we had universal soldiers before, back in the Cold War. Every had the same equipment, 4 magazines that would all do it, fix it all. It doesn't work anymore. So
Now, I remember during the... Sorry, yeah?
Yes, exactly, and that's also perhaps Tor would like to talk a little bit more about the 3-block war, because that's exactly what you're talking about there, Sergey, and that is one of the requirements, the operational requirements for this system, to ensure that the regular infantry soldier can operate during the entire spectrum, which an operation actually may be. It means that you may start performing humanitarian missions, and you may end up in full regular conflict, or it may go the other way around as well, or anything in between.
It's very true, and in some matters, the success of the mission can be that keeping a low profile or a soft approach is the way ahead, and going into that situation with fully combat ready can be quite intimidating, so the ability to adjust and adapt according to the situation you're in is a key factor, and with this system we believe that we have that ability. So if you're in a scenario where you can be in a fighting situation one day and then you're in a village meeting the other day, then you actually have the ability to adjust and adapt to that.
Exactly. So the system today really needs to do everything that systems did in the 80s and in the 90s and in the 2000s. So the type of system required today is I would really like to say a full spectrum system. You need to be able to equip and mass equip a nation's army, and also you need to be able to equip special forces or specific infantry units for very specific tasks that might be like operations abroad, etc. It's a very, very broad spectrum.
Yeah, it reminds me of Iraq in the early days of the Americans patrolling on the streets. So they were wearing kit like this, completely covered, because they were very static. Whereas, the operators are wearing... But just a question, Sergey, from an operator's perspective. Going from a full kit like that to a very light system where you need to get it in hard and fast, how do you think about that mentally being less protected? Did any of the boys think about that?
No, actually, they had a plate carrier, as Jan was talking about, protected torso. But then they know that the best way for them to survive is to be able to move quick and hit fast, and that's why they need the mobility. So that's why they would strip it down, and they would carry let's say a plate carrier with plates in and a lot of magazine, and they have a high mobility, because that's the best way to survive, to be as short time as possible in the kill box.
Well, that's great. So I think we've covered all the subjects we need to cover. So we're going to wrap it up and say thank you to our panelists. Thank you very much for attending and giving us your expertise here. Thank you for the audience for tuning in. Like I said, you will have an additional 20-odd minutes to send in questions if you have them. We will answer them as best as we can. And don't forget that this is in a series of webinars and podcasts and interviews we'll be doing. So follow us on nfm.no, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.